Hello everybody and welcome back to Pure Power. This time we're going to talk about steps, and I'm going to show you a tactic I used quite a bunch in the campaign, and as far as I remember I didn't lose a single time, although I didn't meet any like top teams, I guess, from the side on steps. But still, I believe yeah, this is a really strong tactic, so let's get into it. Steps has two sides, basically north and south, which is also where the spawns are, and then you can divide the map into the right flank, the middle road, with the useless fields, and the left flank. There's one big difference between the two sides though, is that here you've got pretty much flat ground with like one good position, while here you've got really high mountains and here you've got some nice high ground. Which, for me, or in my eyes, really favors this side on this map, because these positions are just really strong. And that's exactly what my tactic, I'm going to say, abuses. So basically what I'm saying is that I can use these positions in general, I'll show you which ones when the tactic builds up, to make a very strong defensive position that allows me, while still gaining quite a bunch of map control actually, right? Because I'm going to be able to hold this, which is not like just a corner or something, and allows me to act on both flanks. And I'm also going to have spotters in the middle. So by having those strong defensive positions, I can play around a bit and actually use two RTs without fearing anything. And that's basically what I'm counting on in this tactic, is on one hand having two RTs to do damage to the enemies the entire time, having enough spotters on the other hand to keep spotting for those RTs, and still being able to be pretty mobile, and take map control progressively and take advantage of any mistakes the enemy does. And also by not having too many campy tanks. The one thing which might be an issue for this tactic, namely an enemy which brings even more RT, well, you are able to react and just push them. And if they start running 3-4 RTs normally, you should be able to just overwhelm them. Again, also because they don't have the very strongest defensive positions. But yeah, let's get into it. On this map, in my eyes, from the side, you definitely want to send a spotter here at the beginning, because it gives you a lot of information, and especially against, well, basically any team actually, you can get a lot of damage done to, or at least a little bit. And a little bit of damage in the beginning is really nice. It is kind of risky though, and the map is very open in general. So, first of all, because it's risky, I want to use a T100, and second of all, on this map, I want to use a T100 anyway. I would even maybe consider running two, but in the end, I never do. So we're going to use one T100, who goes in the middle. And if you look at my videos of steps, you see me using the T100 a lot. Like, he goes in the middle at the beginning, but normally he has to leave at some point, or I even replace him with a bat shot if that's safe. And then I use a T100 to do a lot of spotting on either the right and the left flank very actively, and yeah, it really works out very well. So additionally, I want to have some more spotters, of course. But since I'm running two RTs, I don't want to have too many. So I basically just end up going with one spotter for the right side and one spotter for the left side, both of which are bat shots. So on the left side, I use a bat shot up here, on this kind of hill thingy, just because you're up a bit so you get some better vision. There's also, I think, a fancy position up there you can climb up to. I'm not even sure, it depends on which version we're at the moment. The map's changed too much. But it doesn't really matter, you basically go over here and you've got some nice vision of this area and even of up here. And if the enemy comes, you can run away quickly and without any issues. And that's that. He actually gets the support too of an I7, but I'll come back to that in a second and explain that a bit. On the other hand, we've got the other flank, which I also want to spot at the beginning, because basically with those three spotters I should have a pretty decent idea where the enemy is. And I'll put that one right here. By going here with a bat shot up on this ridge, you really don't need to go any further. You're able to spot any enemies going down here, driving down here. If that happens, you need to fall back with this bat shot, but until then you can stay here and you basically have control of the flank. And yeah, once you see the enemies drive down, the bat shot has like 10-20 seconds before he's in danger, because obviously they first need to get here before they can kill him. So you can stay 10-20 seconds to see what else is coming, so you get a nice overview of exactly how many tanks are here, at least hopefully, and what kind of tanks do they have also in the back, right? They're just, I don't know, 9 or 7 in the front, or are super conquerors coming behind, or are 1s or 2s coming behind, right? Very big difference. And after that, that bat shot might have to run away. But at the beginning, we've got a bat shot here, and a T100. Then, we need to be able to defend the left flank and the right flank. The right flank is extremely easy to defend with a couple positions. There's a small ridgeline here. I added a yellow bar, or orange bar, so I hope it's a bit more visible. And basically an I7 or any tank hold down here spots anything here and is basically not killable. So I'm just going to put one single I7 there, and have him have fun. So I7. You could also run a 5A or a 113 if you really wanted to, but I like having an I7 there personally. Then furthermore, you've got these positioned in the back here, this little ridgeline here, which allows you to also be hold down, get a pretty nice amount of spots, again, on enemies which have actually crossed into here, and even a bit into the area here, depending on how much view range you have and whatnot. I wouldn't use I7s for that one, A, because the gun depression is a bit of an issue here, not like here you can just stand on the flat ground, and second of all, because it's more of a shooty position in my eyes. So I used to run 113s. Honestly, why not 5As? I can't really tell you, so I'm actually just going to put down 5A/113. Both of them definitely work very well for this position. Also, an I7 wouldn't be wrong either. And you're going to have two of those here. And basically these three tanks already have a very, very strong lockdown of this area. And then furthermore, we've got this up here where we're going to put our snipers. But I'll also come back to that in a second. Because first of all, we need to cover the other flank. And for that flank, I just use one I7 who goes here in the bushes. It is possible for the enemies to rush this position, so I don't want to have too many tanks there, because if there's like 3-4 and they rush with 15 tanks, then I might lose 3-4 tanks while only killing maybe one. That's not a very good trade. But having one tank there I find very nice, because first of all, he's able to get some shots on enemies crossing even to here, and some additional vision, especially if the batshot gets either has to spot somewhere else or gets pushed away. But also because it forces the enemy to commit if they want to take this. If they just drive into this area and then drive back, you can keep shooting them. And we're able to quickly get enough support from here and here that if they do decide to commit on the I7, we should be able to kill at least an enemy and do a bunch more damage, if not kill a couple more, without, exposing or having too many tanks on the flank. If they really push it, by the way, the I7, if he's smart, he should drive onto this ramp right here. That makes him extremely hard to push, because they really have to go all the way around, right? So yeah, we have that there, and now we need to figure out how we cover. But I guess first of all, we've got our two RTs, let's not forget about those. I used to run one T92 and one GC, and I would probably do that again. Why? Because T92, I guess you could even consider running a GW100 on this map, but that's just a bit too slow in my eyes. The T92 has a nice combination of really nice DPM and alpha and damage output, basically. With, I guess, nice backtrack. It's just a good RT for doing damage overall, and it doesn't run out of ammo like a 261 might. And the GC is able to hit positions in case the enemies really camp in weird areas and the angle really matters. So that might be if the enemy is hanging here a lot, T92 might have some bad shots and a GC is able to hit them easily. And also over here, for example, you've got some pretty high rocks where T92 might get some issues shooting, but the GC just won't. So I used to run this mixture, but seriously, double GC would work, double T92 would work, and you can probably play around with GW100s too if you really have to or need to or want to. Furthermore, we've got a T100 here, so he's going to spot stuff at the beginning. So it's probably quite smart if I send some people who can snipe at what he spots. So for that, I'm going to use a couple 907s. I'll just start with a few for now. I want to have two 907s here to be able to snipe on this side, and two 907s here. Positions are not too exact. You can, it's like hang out in this area, be safe, don't die, don't take damage, and be able to shoot. And same here, the bushes there are nice, but also be careful you don't get blind shot and so on. Furthermore, since we are very defensive, you can play around a bunch, and it depends what you're really scared of. If you want to run STRVs or not, is what I'm talking about. If you run STRVs, it becomes near impossible for the enemy to push on one hand, but if the enemy does run triple or quadruple RT and you need to push on your side, STRVs are not too great to have. I would probably end up running one anyway. Most of the time I even ran two, but I think I would not do that anymore. You could also run none and just play with full 907 instead. But either way, I'm going to put on one STRV icon for now. It doesn't really matter where I put it. I guess I'll put it here, because that's the starting position. And that leaves me with one more tank, which will actually be one more 907 in this case. Like I said, it could be one more STRV or two more 907s. And he's also going to go here at the beginning. But I'm going to make it very clear straight away. These four tanks just go here at the very beginning to be able to snipe. These 907s can stay here because they give some nice support on this and on this position. And they're very, very hard to push even if the enemy goes here because they can just hide in these areas. But these just go here at the beginning to get some snipes, and after that they should just leave so they don't take any blind shot damage for no reason, and so they're able to snipe. And basically the follow-up positions depend on where the enemy goes. If we see the enemy is pushing on this flank, we keep our IS-7 here, our two 5As here. This Batchat just runs completely away, and most likely together with this Batchat tries and takes some map control over here, at least sees what's up. If needed, or even most likely, the 907s are going to join. Although if I really see they're pushing here, then I'm just going to send the 907s back. Either way, I'm going to use blue for the follow-up positions here. You're definitely going to want to have the STRV if you're running one, and if you're running two, even both of them. Up here is a really good position. I'll just put down 3 STRV positions, I'll explain that in a second. Obviously you only have one. Or max 2. But these are really, really strong STRV positions, even up here. Or rather, these are really strong sniping positions. This one is like next to a little ditch. This one you need to use some bushes, and this one is right on the corner, just far in the back. But all of them allow you to completely murder this area. And if you see the enemy going on the side, I immediately would put 2 tanks up here, an STRV and a 907, or if I'm running 2 STRVs, both STRVs, because those are the best snipers, and if I'm not running any, then 2 907s. And if I see the enemy is really going to commit for a push, or I think so, I would even not have any issues with putting literally 4 tanks or 3 tanks up here, just ready to snipe. Keeping the I-7 here in the front, and these here at the front line. You can also consider putting a 907, for example, in this area, or like I said, also an STRV. But I think this is more of a 907 position. But these positions up here are extremely powerful defensively to cover this flank. If, on the other hand, you see the enemy going on this side, I would still leave 1, maybe even 2 tanks up in here. Specifically this position, because it's actually able to shoot quite far into this. And this one kind of to be able to support if needed. And also in case the enemy comes on this side, you're able to rotate. Also, like I said, you could also just use this. And then you're going to want to maybe reinforce this area, definitely keep your 2 tanks there alive, and send the rest of your tanks up here. This is a really strong position because it covers the left. And also, in case the enemy does a weird pincer movement through the middle, from up here and up here, you're actually able to completely dominate that. So I'm going to use blue again, and I'm going to put down 907 icons this time. But again, you might also have a few other tanks here. It is a variable tactic, and you're meant to adapt yourself using your own brain. For example, if they're really all pushing here, you probably can rotate these 5As, 113s to this flank, right? That's also one of the reasons we're using 5As or 113s here and not IS-7s. They are a little bit faster, they accelerate a little bit faster. So if they need to come to the other flank, you don't want to have 3 heavies out of the fight. You can quite quickly rotate these over. And this I-7 is actually already quite close and can do this trip quite fast. Or simply stay here to cover this flank, depending on the situation. So, this is pretty much the beginning setup. You have an I-7 here controlling this, together with a Batchat able to be there at the beginning, so you get the first spot, and able to be a bit more mobile. You've got 2 907s sniping from here, being able to shoot, for example, into this, and just in general, have some nice map control, and hopefully you get some early damage with all your snipers covering the T100. Quite often I've even been able to kill a Batchat here, or get a lot of damage into tanks right here. You have a Batchat here who spots the enemy here. If the enemy is taking this flank, you take defensive positions here. If the enemy pushes this flank, you take defensive positions with your front being here, and then the rest of your tanks being here with maybe a few here. You notice in either case, our arty remains safe, and that's really important. Our arty doesn't have to move a lot, whatever the enemy does, at least at the beginning, which allows it to shoot constantly and really have a damage output, which is really important if you're counting on your double arty to do damage. Now, the next step about this tactic is basically to gain map control. And the easiest way of doing that is, whenever you see the enemy on one flank, take just as many tanks as you can, and take just as much map control as you can on the other flank. So if you see the enemy going here, normally I would take 2, 3, 4, 5 tanks, depending on what exactly I see, and at least try and secure this position. Maybe I'll even go up to here with 1 tank or whatever. Why? Because this, you can still run away from quickly if the enemy has mediums here and then decides to rotate around and back, because you'll see them here or here, and you can run away back to your team, but otherwise you're able to hold a position. You're also able to create some really nice crossfire with these positions in case I counter push, and you get map control. I would even be very careful, because one of the strong counters is to counter rush in a tactic like this, since you're going to be pretty splitty and you've got possibly some TDs and 2 RTs. So I would often even only send 1 tank in the front, and then cover him further back with a bunch more tanks. Normally 907s being the covering tanks. The tank in the front will vary depending on the situation. It might be a Batchat or a T100. If I want to be able to really run away quickly or be able to do some deeper spotting runs and be a bit more active in that sense. It might be one I7, in this case this one, or in this case maybe this one, mostly on this side, because he's able to go hold down, he takes the least damage from RT, and he's also really hard to push. So if you get the I7 nice and hold down here, it's really, really tricky for the enemy to push him out. And if they just try spotting them from here or whatever, with their own hold down tanks, and it becomes an RT fight. I7s take very little damage from RT and have a lot of HP, plus we'll be able to spot. Plus all I7s in Hood had 500 meters view range towards the end of the campaign, actually during most of the campaign. So in that case, it's a very strong tank. If you're more worried about the enemy having a lot of mediums going to counter rush, again, use a Batchat or 200 which can run away. Or maybe even your own 907, which can run away just as fast. And if you have a nice full life one, that can work out right fine. But you need to make sure you've got a 907 with a brain and nice view range and nice camo. Similarly, if the enemy pushes here, I would just take the fast tanks, aka the two Batchats. This Batchat would just run away. Maybe even the 200, or maybe the Batchat, or one of the Batchat goes here, and the 200 joins here, and try and take control of this entire area. It's kind of risky, because they could have a trap here, I guess, but if you go smart about it, it's not that dangerous. And most enemies just won't be able to push here and make a trap here. It's just too random. Enemies can't count on that working, because you could just counter push here and win the game, right? So yeah, and once you're able to have these ridgelines, basically, like standing up here, for example, again, you're able to see any enemies coming back, because you spot them here, and you spot this entire area. So if they counter push, you can run away, and otherwise you can keep spotting. You can do spotting rounds, which you're pretty hard to hit if you do spotting rounds over here, because you just show your turret, you're moving at full speed, etc. You can run away, like I said, and your RT can work. And from there, basically you try and slowly encroach upon the enemy, and yeah, either they're forced to push into you because you're running double RT, or you do damage with double RT all game long, and at some point you can just focus them down and push them. For example, if they're here and they just kind of hang here, and you actually get a lot of map control, let's say you even control, maybe you even get a tank here, can't really happen. Control over this, you might not be able to want it, or you might not want to push into this. But yeah, you see that they have done a lot of damage, and at some point you just group up all your tanks over here. They can't even see it coming, really, and you just push in. And same thing can be done over here. And yeah, otherwise you just keep gaining map control by, at some point, even pushing up in the middle, taking control of this, and figuring it out from there. Explaining how exactly to end the game, I guess, is a bit tricky, because it really, really, really depends on the enemy setup and situation. And on this map, I've seen everything from a full heavy team, in which case you really focus on using your RT, taking less damage, taking complete map control, and then either setting up crossfires that they need to counter push into because you put pressure on the cap or have some really strong positions. For example, if you manage to take this position, completely game over basically while still holding this. On the other hand, you might meet an enemy team with a lot of mediums. In that case, they're going to try and overmatch you at some point, and you just need to make sure you never have a bad trade by having your heavies in the front and having them covered well. You're still going to grind them down a bit over time with your RT, and then in the end, since you're running 4 heavies and a lot of mediums which shouldn't take a lot of damage because they're going to be hanging back and shouldn't be spotted much, you can just take the fight and basically push them back without letting them a place to run anymore. Basically, at some point they rush this, and then you take that position, and then you actually don't let it go. So if they counter rush here and you see that happening, for example by having a 200 nicely placed, you just move all your tanks in this area, and when they counter push with mediums into heavies in the front with mediums behind, maybe a striff, they just can't do much. I really suggest you look at my videos of this tactic. If you just look for the step videos of the campaign, it's not going to be hard to find. And yeah, I hope you enjoy, and I'm really curious what you say in the comments, and I guess I'm also curious whether you find this to have been detailed enough or just too rough on the beginnings. Anyway, thanks for watching, see you next time, and bye bye, Genghis here.